Evening to you all. It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown, here for episode number 86 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast. Delighted to be joined, as always, by the main man right here. He's in the building. We're ready to get it on. We're ready to chop it up, talk some boxing for an hour today. Laurie in the house. What's going on, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Looking forward to this show, as usual. Nice day in London today. Went to the gym, had a few domestic things to do. But yeah, I'm okay. I just wanted to start actually by saying we should express our condolences to the boxer who passed away the other day, the South African boxer. I think his name was Simiso Buthelezi.
Mm-hmm.
We touched on it last week. We had that extraordinary incident where he was in the middle of a fight and he was actually winning the fight, wasn't he? And he'd actually
was,
the ropes. But he'd obviously suffered a concussion earlier in the fight, and he proceeded to throw punches at the turnbuckle. The referee, to his credit, stopped the fight immediately. Unfortunately, Simiso Buthelezi went into a coma after the fight and never recovered consciousness. So that's very sad. So it's kind of sad that we had to start on that note. But yeah, I think it was worth mentioning that, you know what I mean? Because it's very sad, obviously.
Yeah, condolences to him. And also I saw that his opponent, because I don't know what you make of it, man, but after the stoppage, the opponent kind of did the Ronaldo, the Sue celebrate, he did that when the fight was waved off. So he got a lot of criticism for that. But he then came out on a radio interview and was saying that he felt like killing himself. He said that the stick that he's had has been that bad. He made reference to that celebration after. He said he didn't know how bad the condition was. I mean, it didn't look good. If you really want me to be, it didn't look good doing that. So even though you don't know how bad it is, of course he didn't know he was going to die. But it just, to me, it probably, I guess when you're caught up in the emotion and everything else is different, he was losing the fight. So I won't put too much on him. But yeah, very tragical round. I mean, he's saying that he feels like killing himself, and obviously you don't want to see that as well. So just a sad episode for boxing, man, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole thing was just very sad. And yeah, I did see that where he was saying that he'd had to take a lot of stick on social media, and he felt suicidal. That in itself is very sad. The whole thing is just very, very sad, and it gives you a sort of time reminder as to how brutal and savage this sport can be, man. So yeah.
Well, shout out to everybody here first of all, man. Apologies, wasn't able to do last week. Got struck down with some flu, man. It hit me pretty bad. I'm not even 100% now, but like I am over it compared to I couldn't even talk last week. It wasn't COVID, but it was just some bad flu, man. It just had me bedbound for a couple of days, and it is what it is. But the hay fever is killing me right now. That's the new one, so you can't really get rid of that. It is what it is. But yeah, apologies for not having the show last week. Shout out to everybody here in the chat. I see you, Michael, Harvey, Stefan in the building. He says here, Nathan Gorman fight week. He also says here, his opponent celebrating was ridiculous, but I guess in that moment, it's easy to do something you wouldn't in hindsight. Yeah, well said.
Yeah, the sheer exaltation of winning a fight, especially if you were like that particular boxer, that was a come from behind win. He wouldn't have known what was going on at the time with his opponent. So I guess we have to give him a little bit of a leeway there, but it just kind of shows you that fighters need to be a little bit responsible, even in the moment, because bad things can happen. I've seen many times where you see a fighter knock an opponent out, and then you will see many times either the referee or the corner will try and, will try and quieten the fighter down a little bit and say, look, let's just hold back on celebrations until we see that your opponent's all right. And sometimes you can see them having to physically restrain the guy and say, look, chill, let's wait till he recovers first before you start celebrating. So we do see that a lot in the ring, but yeah.
I wanted to get your thoughts on this before we delve into the topics today. Off topic, but I saw the interview. I saw his response interview today. I'm talking about Ben Shalom. He was on a viral video over the last couple of days where he approached a reporter and he was basically saying, look, no AJ, no Dazn, no Eddie Hurt. Like, he was basically saying that to him. So basically outlining what the reporter could talk about before they conducted their interview. And he wasn't aware that it was recording. The recording got leaked. His response to that was, I kind of agree. I kind of can agree, and I can see the fault in what he's saying as well. Where I can agree is where, people do that. You go to football press conferences, they'll say, like, first of all, okay, no talking about this, no talking about that. So I can relate to, it's not the worst thing in the world that he's done. People do that. But then on the other hand, it's just like, like you're kind of censoring a person that just wants to ask questions. Do you know what I mean? So unless it was something offensive or something that could be, let's say if it was a sensitive topic, then I guess you could really get it. But, I wanted to get your thoughts on that because, yeah, do you think he was a bit out of line for that? Or do you think that he can get what he's saying with regards to censoring the media and stuff like that? Like, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I did see the original.
Eddie Hearn don't do it. Like, carry on.
I did see the original footage, and to be honest with you, I wasn't really that upset about it or that in that much uproar because, let's face it, these kind of censorship things do go on. And it's not just boxing, it's a whole range of things, not just sport, it's in politics as well. So to be honest with you, I wasn't really that outraged about it, to be honest. I guess it depends on how far the censorship goes. I mean, there's censorship and then there's, you don't want to stop. You don't want to get to the point where fight conferences or media days just become redundant because the questions are just so bland and asinine that it don't make sense. So I guess it depends on how far they go. I must admit, I wasn't surprised at all. In fact, I was surprised that so many people seem to be surprised, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, Harvey says here, it doesn't look good for Ben, but a lot probably do it, especially Bob Arum and Frank Warren. I also have a problem with the person who leaked it.
Yeah, I think, well, I wasn't really that upset about it, to be honest, because I've been going to press conferences for many, many years over the years. And I've seen a lot of things like that where, promoters will tell you that, not to ask questions about a certain particular subject or a certain particular fighter or a certain particular fight. And then sometimes when the media people do go there, then they get shut down by the promoter or sometimes by the fighters' people. Publicists or managers or whatever. His representatives will say, look, we're not taking any questions on that particular subject. So, yeah, to answer your question, I wasn't in that much uproar about it because it's commonplace.
Big up DS in the building. I see you, bro. Stefan has said here, I didn't see that much issue in it, but I think it shows naivety. Any promoter should be able to handle an interview regardless of questions. And Asher said here, quick side note, Joe Joyce and Christian Hammer is done. Cheers, Uncle Frank. Yeah. Your immediate reaction to that news?
Very underwhelming. Christian Hammer, come on.
I mean, we're going to be talking about Dubois in a minute. Well, right now, actually, his win over Trevor Bryan at the weekend. And you can say, like, since their fight, there's probably been more uplift for Daniel Dubois than it has been for Joe Joyce. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, I don't know, man. Like, Christian Hammer. Come on, man.
That's what I'm saying. Joe Joyce's career is unfortunate because it doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. It's not his fault. He wants to get the work. I think part of the problem is there's not too many people queuing up to fight Joe Joyce. I mean, what happened to the fight with him and Joseph Parker?
Yeah.
What happened to that?
Well, Andy Lee, he's having his missus is having a baby. It's ridiculous. His missus having a baby. So they didn't. Yeah. So no one knew.
I mean, don't get me wrong. No disrespect to Andy Lee. Congratulations, but hey, that doesn't stop Joe Joyce from fighting, does it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shambles though because it was announced on BT on the Fury and White bill that them two were fighting, and then all of a sudden it didn't come to fruition because you know, Andy Lee's missus is having a baby, so he's not going to be available. Didn't you know that before? Like, it's a bit. I saw Frank Warren. Frank Warren was pissed off about it as well, to be fair. So I don't think he knew that was going to be what was going to happen. But still, it's just a bit of a shit show all around. And plus, as Harvey's saying here, Parker's with Sky now, so that's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess if you're Joseph Parker, he probably didn't really, deep down, he probably didn't really want that fight anyway. But yeah, I do feel a bit sorry for Joe Joyce because, as you alluded to earlier, since he's beaten Dubois in such impressive fashion, if anything, his career stalled. Whereas Dubois is now the holder of it's a trinket belt, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In a high-profile fight of which Joe Joyce has not seen the likes of since he fought Dubois and won. So it's a little bit unfortunate if you're Joe Joyce. And when you face it, they're managed by the same people. Then I would imagine he has a right to feel a little bit aggrieved about that. Because you would have thought that his career would have kicked on.
Yeah.
And
what about the circus that took place on Saturday night, man? I mean, you've fought in front of bigger crowds than that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just a shit show, man. And like, I mean, listen, Dubois
did better opponents than Trevor Bryan as well.
Dubois did what he was supposed to do. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I was quite surprised there were people out there that thought Bryan was going to really do anything. I knew it was just going to be a matter of time before Dubois got him out of there. Many people did, to be fair. It's not like I thought of it myself, but yeah, just the arena, the kind of the build up, the fight. It was just a weird event, really. But listen, Dubois won't care.
The size of the ring was like a shit.
Yeah, the ring was. Don King didn't do his opponent his fighter any favors there. Yeah, Dubois just kind of steamrolled Trevor Bryan. There's not really much to really break down in this particular fight. But listen, I wanted to just, good for Dubois. Do you know what I mean? The whole WBA regular belt and everything else was just, listen, man, I don't believe in it. I think it's a job. I thought that Paul Dempsey, it was a bit shameless hearing that on the broadcast, man, him saying that, you know, can Dubois take the title home? And I guess he's got to do what he's got to do because it is, you know, a BT show and they are trying to sell the fight. But, you know, hardcore boxing fans know that is not the real belt. It's just a regular belt. It's just what Gervonta Davis has. We know that that's not the real belt at lightweight. Even Lee Wood, do you know what I'm saying? Who's someone who we feel that, he could really be up there and deserves a real world title. That belt's not the real world title. It's a regular belt. And until the WBA get rid of that crap, then, you know, we're going to be lumbered with this regular title. But listen, for Dubois, it kind of puts him in a good position. I saw him calling out Dillian White. I saw him calling out some other guys. So fair play to him. I'm not going to rain on his parade too much. I just don't like the regular belts in boxing, man. I thought the WBA were going to clean that up. I thought that was part of their thing to clean up those belts, man. They're clearly not doing that.
Yeah, listen, the whole thing was a shit show. Let's be honest, man. It was, the promotion was pathetic. The whole event was pathetic. Dubois' opponent was pathetic, both before, during, and after the fight. I mean, before the fight, the guy talked so much smack. I mean, I was saying it to you off air that maybe it's me, maybe it's my age, maybe I'm showing my age, but we seem to be living in an era where it's so disrespectful. Some of the pre-fight stuff I see, some of the things that get said, I just find it ridiculous, man. And, you know, it's so-called selling the fight. Well, if it was selling the fight, he didn't do a very good job, did it, Trevor Bryan? Because there was hardly anyone there. And then, as with a lot of these guys that talk all this smack, so-called selling the fight, he gets in there and he was a pathetic opponent. He was terrible, man. He didn't even look like he trained, for one. You know what I mean? Like, he had the body of a 60-year-old man. And I'm, you know what I mean? I know size and shape is not everything. People reference Andy Ruiz and people like that. But come on, man. You could tell straight away, the minute Dubois landed that first jab, you could see the surprise in Trevor Bryan's face. You knew that fight weren't going to go long, and it was only a matter of time. And to be fair to Dubois, he did look good, actually. I mean, the finishing punch, that short left hook, Trevor Bryan just...
Beautiful punch.
Sorry?
It was a lovely left hook.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite impressed by Dubois. I feel a bit sorry for Dubois in a way because, like, no one's going to give him any credit because the opponent just looked so bad. All his efforts was with that. You know what I mean? All he did was talk. And then after the fight, he said, yeah, no disrespect. I was just trying to sell the fight. Oh, come on, man. He just joins a long list of very disrespectful guys. Chris Colbert, Jose Vargas, Romero. He goes on with these guys that just talk all that, get in the ring, and then they get knocked out. And then they start chatting this, yeah, I was just trying to sell the fights stuff. Pathetic. Trevor Bryan was a disgrace, really. Called himself a belt holder. He went out with a whimper. Did he even land a punch, Trevor Bryan? I don't recall him even landing a single decent punch. Did he land a punch? Because if he did, I doubt if I saw it. It's a total mismatch.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that was being brought over to feed Daniel Dubois when he was about 5-0. He was no better than that. So there you go. And he's supposed to be a belt holder. Come on, man. He was pathetic.
Well, where does Trevor Bryan fit in in the UK heavyweights? Can you see him beating any of them? Like which UK heavyweights do you see him beating?
I was actually surprised at how bad he was. I was thinking that, I wasn't impressed or convinced by the smack talk. I kind of saw right through that. But I thought to myself, he's got a belt, so he must be half decent. They were saying he hadn't been beaten for a number of years. So I'm expecting the guy to come out and maybe do okay for a few rounds. I knew Dubois was going to beat him. I absolutely knew Dubois was going to walk through it, but it was how long and what type of fight you would put up until Dubois nailed it. I never, ever, ever thought that he was going to beat Dubois. No. But I have to say, man, his effort was... Well, there was no effort, really, was there? He didn't do anything. You know what I mean? He was just a punching bag in there, man.
Yeah,
absolute punching bag. So yeah, people like Trevor Bryan just need to get out the game. I heard him saying after the fight, him and Jarrell Miller are good friends. That kind of sums him up, really. You know what I mean?
Big up Ronald Finkley here in the chat. Nathan here has said Bryan probably ain't a bad guy. To be fair, he clearly tried to talk that BS to sell it, but he never stood a chance in the fight anyway. That's what Nathan's saying.
Yeah, but here's my problem with that. You're trying to sell a fight. What is uploading pictures of Daniel Dubois' sister got to do with the fight? What is bringing along some tampons, you know what I mean? A box of tampons to the weigh-in and dancing around without the weigh-in, throwing them at Dubois? What? It's classless, man. Where are the boundaries nowadays, man?
Old school. Well, you know what? I was saying you're old school, but stuff like this did happen back in the day, Like, look at Ricardo Mayorga. Look at the stuff he used to do.
Not like that, though.
It did happen back in the day, man.
It did not happen like that. I've never heard Richard.
What, you don't think Mayorga did stuff like that back in the day?
I think Mayorga did do a few crazy things, but what I'm saying is the level of things that we're seeing now. I think with Mayorga, there's probably a one-off thing with him. When I say with him, meaning him as the person being a bit of a one-off. What I'm saying, the problem I've got is that basically every big fight nowadays, we're seeing this more and more. People think that they have to go to those extremes to sell a fight, and they don't. You know what I mean? That's what's kind of pissing me off, really. You know what I mean?
What about this comment from Ash here? Because I kind of said this to you off camera as well. Like, you was really impressed with Dubois. I thought Dubois did okay, but like, I wasn't like, wow, man, look unstoppable there. And Ash is saying the same thing. He's saying it was a good performance, but it was a long way to go. I wasn't really that impressed. He missed a lot of shots.
Yeah, you could say he missed some shots, but listen, as I said to you, the minute Trevor Bryan felt that first jab, he was in survival mode. Sometimes it's not easy to get a guy out of there that is just so intent on survival. Trevor Bryan never showed 1 ounce of attacking or aggressive intent, did he? And that makes it harder for you to get rid of somebody that's just in there basically to survive. He did nothing. So it was all on Dubois to make the fight, which he did. And yeah, he did miss some shots. But like I said, if you look back at the fight again, you look at the finish, I thought the finish was very impressive. Especially when you think Dubois is known for his big right hand. The finishing shot was a short left hook that Trevor Bryan walked into, basically. Took him out, man. You know what I mean? And I thought that was impressive. Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, he he did what he had to do. And like I said, because the opponent was so bad, I suspect that Daniel Dubois is not really going to get much credit. However, I thought he did look decent in there.
Couple of notes I want to quickly get on before we move on. Michael Maxwell says here, Trevor Bryan should retire along with his promoter. Don King, man, look, I know he's 90, no disrespect, man. You know, to be up and active at 90 is to be even here at 90 is incredible. Do you know what I mean? So no disrespect there, but he just really looked like he needs a rest, man. Just allow the boxing thing, man. It's just, do you know what I mean? Like, he looked a bit frail to me, man. You know, like
very frail. The thing is, if Don King is going to carry on with his promotions, there has to be some succession planning. There needs to be some delegation, because it looks to me like he's trying to front up and do everything, whereas you can see quite clearly that he's not capable of doing so. And like I said, that promotion was a real shit show. So yeah, there needs to be some succession planning. Who's there to take over the reins? No one, it would appear. Either that, or he doesn't want to let nobody get involved. It could be that as well, because we know that Don King is a bit of a narcissist and always has been. So maybe he feels that he's able to front up the organization and do that. But yeah, it was terrible, man. Terrible. I felt, like I said, I felt a little bit sorry for Dubois, although, you know, obviously it's a higher profile fight than what Joe Joyce is involved in. But even so, I think he deserved better, really.
Yeah. I mean, the talk now is what Harvey's saying here. A lot of people talking about Dubois taking on Dillian Whyte. He obviously called out Dillian Whyte after the fight. He's saying here a lot of people are picking Dubois to beat Whyte now. We spoke about that. I'll let you talk about that on here. Stefan saying here, is Dubois ready for that Big Daddy Brown litmus test? Probably would have gave him more of a test than Trevor Bryan.
No, I don't think he would, to be honest.
No, I don't think so. No. But
you have to remember, a couple of fights ago, Big Daddy Brown was knocked out by a nice 40-year-old former rugby league player in the first round as well. So let's put that.
What about Dubois and Dillian Whyte? Because that was the talk after the fight. You know, Dillian obviously lost to Tyson Fury. Hasn't got an opponent right now, of course. Dubois called him out. There's a bit of history, a bit of needle between them two. Remember when Dillian Whyte got flattened by Povetkin? Dubois, literally while Dillian Whyte was still on the floor, Dubois was calling out Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte didn't take too kindly to that. Then when Dubois got stopped by Joe Joyce, Dillian Whyte came out, said his words about him, calling him a quitter and everything else. There's a little bit of, do you know what I mean? I wouldn't mind seeing it, but you seem to think that that's a bit of a whitewash right now.
Well, I'd like to see that fight, to be honest. I mean, me personally, I think Dillian should retire. I said that after the way he was comprehensively shellacked by Tyson Fury. I said he's got nowhere else to go. But I also said at the time that Dillian won't retire, because you know what boxers are like, especially somebody like Dillian who's got that kind of pride and hubris that he has. There's no way he's going to want to go out on a performance like that. So I almost understand it. But from a physical point of view and what he's done in the game, I just thought that's as good as it's going to get for Dillian. He's not going to get any more world title shots, I wouldn't have thought. But you know what? This is a kind of world title shot that's kind of come up. Dubois calling him out. And if Dillian's going to stay in the game, and Dillian said he wants to stay fighting, and Dillian has also said that he wants fights where he wants fights that are meaningful. He doesn't want to be a stepping stone for up-and-comers. Daniel Dubois has a title. We described it, well, I described it as a trinket belt. But, you know, it does have some relevance. And it would be a domestic dust-up that a lot of people, including myself, would watch. In terms of the fight itself, listen, man, I'm going to keep it 100. Dubois smoked Dillian inside of 3 rounds.
What?
Yeah.
3 rounds? You think he'd knock Dillian Whyte in 3 rounds?
He'd knock Dillian out, similar to what he did to Trevor Bryan. But it would end earlier. Shall I tell you why? Because unlike Trevor Bryan, who was just in there to survive and had absolutely no attacking or aggressive intent at all. You know that Dillian, being the type of man he is, he will bring it. You know what I mean? He will bring it. There will be needle in the build-up because, like you said, they both had shots at each other. And I think that would make for an exciting fight. But ultimately, it would end with Dillian being soundly beaten, man, knocked out inside of 3 or 4 rounds. You know what I mean? I'm just my honest opinion, man. I think Dillian's shot. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I look at his cognitive functions in that Tyson Fury fight. They look very off to me, man. Balance was gone. You know what I mean? Yeah. The early stages, well, it's not even that early to me. It's clear. I watched boxing a long, long time, and I could see shot fighters, man. I could tell a shot fighter when I see one, and Dillian is pretty much shot to pieces. And that fight would last as long as it takes for Dubois to land that right hand or left hook clean. Dillian's out.
There's some comments here from what you've said on that prediction. First of all, let me just big up Francisco. Can't make the live today. He'll check it out later. Big him up. Seen a lot of guys talk about Bacoli and Dubois, that's a good fight for real. That's definitely a good fight.
Yeah, that'd be a good fight.
Onto your
for marketing purposes, I think the Dillian's are much.
Oh yeah,
much bigger sell, isn't it? So you can see why he wants it.
Onto your prediction, Jerry says here, big statement, Laurie. I love it. Asher said here, Laurie, you're way too gassed on Daniel Dubois. Who has he ever beaten? Nobody. Stefan says here, it's all about timing. I think Dubois will beat White as well. I can understand people thinking the opposite, though. I can make a case for both. Harvey says here, I'm not sure about that, Laurie, but it's an interesting fight. Ian Hammond has said here, why would Dillian entertain that fight? He's got more to lose than to gain by fighting Dubois. Plus, Dillian would try and drag Dubois into the well, but that's just my take. Nathan says here, on paper, Gorman, yeah, it is Gorman. That is Dubois' best win, for sure. But he obviously needs tougher tests. So you're going to double down on that prediction. I know you won't back down from that.
No, listen, it's not personal because I like Dillian. You know what I mean? If anything, I would want Dillian to win.
It's definitely gone. It's definitely gone. His punch resistance. It's nowhere near as good as it was.
Let me quantify what I'm saying. I'm just basing that off of what I've seen, yeah? Obviously, we won't know until they get in the ring, if they ever do get in the ring. But I'm just telling you what I've seen from Dillian. He looks a shot fighter to me. When Tyson Fury knocked him out, that shot didn't even look that hard. It didn't even connect on the chin. It was more of a grazing shot. It was a good shot, but it was a grazing shot. It shouldn't have been the type of shot that should have had Dillian out of there, you know what I mean? And then his claims that he was pushed over, well, come on, that was ridiculous. And yeah, I mean, Dillian's had some hard fights, man. He's been in some hard fights over the years. He's a warrior. And he's been brutally knocked out a few times now. And Dubois, whatever you want to say about him, or if he quit against Joe Joyce or whatever, or some people saying he's a bit plodding and pedestrian. The one thing that we do know about Dubois is that he carries genuine power in both hands as well. Saturday demonstrated that when beautiful short left hook, laid the guy out cold. And, you know, that had never happened to Trevor Bryan before, despite him being so poor in the actual fight. No one had ever done that to him before. So you've got to give Dubois credit for that. And I'm saying that Dubois is a young guy. Okay, he's had that one defeat, but it's not like he took a battering in that fight. You know what I mean?
What? You don't think he took a bit of a beating in that fight? Look at his eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But what I'm saying, it wasn't like he was being battered from pillar to post because he actually started off the fight quite well. Okay, it ended bad for him. But what I'm saying, that was just one night, wasn't it? Whereas Dillian's had a few nights, man, where he's been beaten up and knocked out brutally. And I just think he's reaching the end of his career. And I think that whilst it would be a fun fight for the fans, I don't actually think it's a good fight for Dillian. It'll be interesting to see his approach to it, whether he wants to fight. The problem with Dillian, he's in that kind of part of his career now where he's got to be matched so carefully, because on the one hand, he doesn't want to be a stepping stone for the young guys coming up. You've got to be careful who you match him with sort of opponents out the blue that are seemingly there for the win, and then all of a sudden they turn around and beat him, and then that would be it. Or you put him in with somebody like Dubois, who's got a trinket belt, and let him fight for that to try and rebuild his career, and he gets beaten. I mean, you saw actor Joseo Vargas at the weekend.
Yeah.
Brutal knockout against Zepeda. They then go and find him an opponent that they think, yeah, man, this guy, I mean, I think he had something like 5 losses and 3 draws in his record. Wasn't that touted. Was supposed to be an opponent. And he ends up knocking out Vargas in the second round.
Well, yeah. Let's go. So I've got a couple of comments here I want to read out. But again, another example is Miguel Berchelt. He ain't been the same since he got brutally knocked out. Do you know what I mean? His punch resistance seems completely gone. But big up Daniel White in the chat. He says here, good evening, gents. I want to give props to Laurie because I was convinced that Kambosos would win, and he had none of it. I agree. I don't think Dillian would take it, but I would fancy Dubois to catch him. Ian has said here, let's take into account the fact that Dubois' chin has never been tested. Joyce beat him with a jab. Dubois gives me Frank Bruno vibes in not a good way. He doesn't defend himself well. That's a good point. But why are you not talking about Dubois' chin?
Yeah, because what I'm saying is I don't think Dillian will get a chance to test it. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, you know what it is? Like with boxing, boxing's a very funny sport like that, man. You know what I mean? They say you're only as good as your last fight, and there is a lot of truth in that. Because it's not just the manner of the defeat, it's the confidence that a fighter can lose. As again, I reference Vargas, Joseo Vargas. Look at him on
the weekend.
At the weekend, the first time he got touched, man, that was it. And that was against a journeyman fighter. So this is what I'm saying about Dillian. He's had quite a few hard fights. He's coming off a pretty devastating and conclusive loss to Tyson Fury. And I just think that to go in there in your next fight against a known puncher like Dubois, a young, hungry guy like that, calling you out, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. That's a suicide mission for me.
Big up W12.
A few years back, yeah, fair enough. That's a keenly contested fight. But the Dillian of right now, nah, I think Dubois gets him out of there early.
Big up W12 MC. He seems to agree with you. He says here, Dillian is done. He's too slow, chin gone, slow feet, and he's an easy target.
Yeah, and he's got absolutely zero balance. Zero balance. He's cognitive. I'm telling you now, people, Dillian's cognitive function is impaired. You know what I mean? When it comes to boxing, you can see it. He's got no balance. He's slow, like the guy said there. His punch resistance has gone. The only thing left with him is a warrior spirit. I would never say that Dillian, even though he kind of mentally checked out in that last fight he had, I'm sure if once he signs a contract to fight with Dubois, if they do fight, he will come in there with the intentions to win. But even that might just walk him right onto a big right hand. You know what I mean? So he's not going to box Dubois, is it? He's not going to try and box off the jab or anything like that. So,
well, let's touch, because conscious we ain't got that much time, but we'll touch on the other fights at the weekend before we move on to this weekend. Riakporhe, great body shot, second round. He looked very good. Munguia and Kelly, I had no interest in it at all. I think Munguia is starting to become a waste of time. And then you've got Berlanga, who doesn't really appear to be the sort of star that Top Rank were making him out to be. But, you know, he got another win at the weekend, despite that infamous bite that he did. I don't know what was going on there. But Riakporhe, you know, your thoughts on him. Is he ready for the world champions, you know, that they're really saying? They seem to be calling him out. He has been active. He's been out there 4 times in 8 months, I believe it was. So, yeah, well, just your thoughts, a roundup of the other weekend's fights before we move on.
Yeah, with Riakporhe, I think he's as ready as he's going to be. Like you said, he's been quite active. I think the last 12 months he's fought 4 times, which is really good, especially in this day and age. He's knocking everyone out when he lands clean. I did like his performance at the weekend. He showed a lot of patience and some good variety going to the body like that. Shows that he is getting better. And when you got a guy like Riakporhe, man, the kind of power that he's got is unnatural power, man. You know what I mean? He's blessed with power. If he lands that type of power, most people, I'm not saying everyone, most people are going to go, or if not, they're going to get hurt. So he's as ready as he's going to be. I mean, they might need to be a bit cute with who they target, but just straight off the top of my head, him versus Lawrence Okoli is a great matchup, man, because they're both power punchers. It could be down to who lands first. You know what I mean? With that one, it's kind of difficult to say because they've both got their.
I think Okoli. I'll still have Okoli higher than Riakporhe, man.
Yeah, but Lawrence. I mean,
come on, man. Lawrence Okoli, he's fought better competition overall. He's a world champion. Do you know what I mean? I think that, yeah.
Yeah, Okoli would be favourite, but what I'm saying, Riakporhe is improving, and he has the kind of power that would trouble Lawrence Okoli because he has the power that will trouble anybody. I'm not saying he knocks everyone out, but what I'm saying, if he lands clean, he has a good chance of either discombobulating you or getting you out of there full stop. And Lawrence has similar type power. So that's a great fight. Probably makes sense for Riakporhe to go after somebody like Okoli because if you go after someone like Bradis, even though he's aging, but he's experienced and he's been at the top level for a long time. So that does count for something. When you get in there with those guys, man, they know how to nullify power punches to a certain degree. Whereas Lawrence is not that cute, you know what I mean? So we'll see.
Got a couple of questions here. Asher said here, Dillian White versus Lucas Brown 2 then, Laurie. And Diaz has said here, how do you think Dubois would get on against Wilder? So just your answers to those two questions.
Well, I don't think Wilder would want Dubois, to be honest. I think Wilder wants Dillian, you know what I mean? But if they did fight, that would be a great fight, man. Again, it could be a matter of who lands first.
I think Wilder would take him out, man. Yeah, I do.
Again, with Wilder, he's been brutally knocked out now a couple of times. Would he be able to take Dubois' power?
I think Wilder would. Come on, man. Dubois,
listen, if you'd have asked me that a couple of years ago, I would have said Wilder in a heartbeat. But Wilder is another one. He's been through some brutal fights with Tyson Fury. You don't know how much damage that's done to him, man. You know what I mean? And like I said, the problem is with Dubois, he's a big puncher. So once he lands, I mean, some people are saying he could be the Wilder aside, he could be one of the biggest punchers in the heavyweight division now. And you know what I mean? There is an argument for that, isn't there? And the rest of you take Wilder out of the equation, one punch hitters, Dubois has to be up there, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We know all heavyweights carry power. Let's face it, they're big men, you know what I mean, with small gloves on. So if they hit you, all of them can hurt you. But there are a few of them that kind of stand out in terms of power. And Dubois is up there with Wilder.
Yeah.
The Dillian's got a decent punch. Fury's got a decent punch. But I think Dubois is a little bit above that when it comes to natural power.
Okay. Your thoughts on the Berlanga fight and the Munguia fight before we wrap that?
Berlanga, well, he should have been disqualified. I mean, how he was not disqualified just goes to show that event on Saturday was just a case of just home cooking gone crazy. Because you cannot tell me that the referee didn't see that. And if he didn't see it at the time, he should have been alerted to it between rounds and he should have took him to one side and threw him out. Come on, man. You can't bite your opponent like that blatantly. The fact that Berlanga was able to give a post-fight interview where he was laughing and joking about it kind of tells you everything, really. Yeah. In terms of his performance, I've got to say, man, that I'm not impressed by Edgar Berlanga whatsoever. I mean, he was on that hot streak, wasn't he? I think it was it
16 straight knockouts?
KOs in the first round, which sounded mighty impressive. But obviously, the opponents were not that good. Because when he stepped up, man, I mean, this is the second straight fight he's had where there's doubt as if he even won the fight. He fought Steve Rose before that. A lot of people thought that Steve Rose should have got the decision. And I'm seeing online where a lot of people thought that Angulo, the fighter he fought on Saturday, should have got the decision over it. Now, I watched the fight last night. I didn't watch it live. But I did watch the fight in its entirety last night on Sky. And I've got to say, it wasn't a great fight. It was two plodding fighters, man. Real devoid of any real skill, either of them. Angulo landed the better punches. There's no doubt about that. He hurt Berlanga a few times with the uppercut, especially. The problem I had with Angulo is his work rate was pretty low, isn't it? There was vast swathes of that fight where he did nothing apart from put the earmuffs up and walk forward. That's not really scoring. Berlanga outlanded him on the CompuBox. And I think Berlanga just about eked it out, but it was very unimpressive, man. I mean, the guy he was fighting was nearly 40 years old, journeyman. He'd stepped up in levels a couple of times before and was soundly beaten. I think he got stopped by Benavidez, and I think he fought Zerdo for a title. He was comprehensively outpointed. Berlanga probably thought he was taking Angulo at the right time, but yet Angulo proves to be a very difficult night for him. So you've got to say to yourself, how far is he going? What's his ceiling? And I said to you, Daryl, off camera, that after watching that fight, being an Englishman myself, I looked at him and I thought to myself, you know what? We've got guys in this country that would beat Berlanga. I've got no hesitation in saying it. I think John Ryder would beat him. I think that, well, Callum Smith's moved up to light heavyweight. He would wash Berlanga.
Yeah.
I think Joe Saunders, if he's coming back, which we're hearing that he's coming back, if he's serious and gets himself into shape, he could beat Berlanga without too many problems. He'd box rings around Berlanga. And I think Zach Parker, who's been a bit slept on this country, I think he would wash Berlanga. I think he would take him out in about half a dozen rounds. You know what I mean? And I'm not being disingenuous to Berlanga. He's not a bad fighter. He's just nowhere near what he's been hyped up to be.
Yeah.
And, he's another one, with a big entourage, guys like Fat Joe and the Terror Squad around and wearing all the jewelry and this and that. But I have to say, man, his performance in the ring does not live up to that type of billing, you know what I mean? And for about the second or third fight in a row now, he's failed to impress. Yeah, I forgot to mention him. I mentioned him to you, didn't I, Darryl? Lerone Richards. He beat Berlanga as well. Got no hesitation in saying that. So, yes, I've named there about 3 or 4 British guys alone in Britain that would beat him.
Go on. What about Kelly and Munguia? What about that fight there? Munguia winning in 5.
Munguia, right? The
level are you feeling how I am with to Jaime Munguia? Like, yeah, they called out Charlo after, but how serious are we taking it, man? I mean, listen, he had trouble with Kelly in there, until he was.
Kelly's not a bad boxer, but I knew
would
happen. I knew he would catch up with him. Listen, Munguia is not the finished article. He gets hit a lot. He's not the greatest in terms of his boxing skill, but he's young, he's hungry, he can punch, he's got a good engine, he throws a lot of punches, and he's getting better with each fight. And I think that it's probably a good thing for him that he's not been matched with the best fighters yet, because he's still developing as a fighter. But I do think his ceiling is quite high, man. And I think if he catches the right opponent on the right night, man, I think he's going to beat them. You know what I mean? Because there is a lot there to work with.
To be fair, Charlo ain't really been, he's been pulled out of his fight against Selecki. That was going to take place this weekend, I think. So yeah, I get it.
Listen, if to be fair to Munguia, if he'd have been fighting Selecki, the likes of you would have said, "Oh, come on, man." You know what I mean? So that fight, I'd love to see that fight with Charlo, because what's Charlo doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not doing nothing these days, and it's starting to look like we may have seen the best of Charlo, man, already. Because I don't know, man, he's just giving me that kind of impression of a guy that's not totally on it. You look at his brother, what he's achieving, and the way he's carrying himself inside the ring, that is, and I just see a guy that is Jamel Charlo, that's just gone on leaps and bounds over his brother, man.
Yeah.
He's not
at one point they were pretty equal. At one point everyone was like, they didn't know who now. And obviously he's going to be fighting Tim Tszyu as well next. That's pretty much
that's another big fight.
See,
when you're at that level, man, you need to be motivated. You know what I mean? If you don't fight good fighters and be in big fights, after a while you'll see the motivation levels drop. You know what I mean? And that's what could be happening to Charlo. I'm a little bit worried that he's not fought for God knows how long. and he's not fighting the best guys. And if he carries on like that, man, you're going to see his performance levels dip. And who knows, fighting one of these guys, they might give him a real hard night or even beat him at this rate.
I want to give a shout out to Daniel White, because he did say on last week's show, I remember, he did say that Chisora and Pulev was close to being done. We all kind of looked at him like, nah, man, that fight ain't happening, man. Like, nah, they're talking about Chisora and Kaunaki. But obviously, I don't know where you got your source from, but yeah, it did turn out to be true. That was confirmed over the week. So shout out to Daniel White. He said here, I know that they're both washed, but how do you see that going? I really couldn't care. But I actually don't. I think Pulev could beat him again, really. But maybe Chisora at this stage, you know, he might be more motivated. He might pound out a decision.
Is that going to be a headline show? Is that the headline?
That's the headliner. That's the headliner. Yeah, it's not on pay-per-view or nothing like that. It's on DAZN.
Whoever's promoting that.
Oh, Eddie's promoting it.
Yeah, if he can pull that off, then props to him, because there is absolutely nothing that attracts me to this fight. They fought before. It was a terrible fight. Pulev won it. I think Derek has more of a chance this time, because he looks like he'd be a bit more motivated than he was for the last Pulev fight. When, let's be honest, man, I think the last fight, there was more action outside the ring when he fought Pulev than inside. You know what I mean? And it's just not a good matchup, man. It's just not, you know what I mean? Derek should really be retired, and so should Pulev. Yeah, man, I mean, I'd like to see Derek win. If he throws enough punches, he should get the win, because let's face it, Pulev's not got much to offer. He got beaten up and stopped by AJ. Yeah, but even if Derek beats him, you're like, so what? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, he would have avenged a previous loss, but apart from that, man, it's on the world scene, it means absolutely nothing, doesn't it?
Well, it lines up his pocket a little bit, I think. But to be fair to Chisora, he said that's all I care about. So fair enough, innit? Like, fair enough.
Yeah. So, yeah, but that could have been an undercard fight, though. You know what I mean? That is not a headline fight of any denomination.
Yeah, we'll see if the card is strong and like.
Yeah, I think that he's going to have to come up with some real. He's going to have to be really creative with that undercard, man, because that is the main headline fight. It just does absolutely nothing for nobody. You know what I mean?
Well, two more things before we go. Beterbiev and Smith taking place this weekend. Really looking forward to that. And your thoughts on AJ signing with DAZN. We'll quickly touch on that, because I did have a few words to say about DAZN a couple of weeks ago. This is a big move for them. But Beterbiev and Smith, Joe Smith Jr., unification fight. 3 of the 4 belts will be on the line. Light heavyweight division, one of my favorites in boxing. It's deep, always has been deep. A lot of the guys there can bang. It's a real division. It has been for a long time, both over here and abroad internationally. It's hot. So I'm looking forward to this fight. You know, neither of these two guys are huge talkers or anything like that. So, you know, what you were mentioning earlier there, these two guys are not with that. They're just here to fight. But Beterbiev, to be fair, is one of my favorite guys out there, man. He just gets shit done. He's a monster. And I like Joe Smith Jr. I like his upbringing. Do you know what I mean? He seems very grounded. He does have a bit of a dig himself. He will come to fight. Beterbiev has shown that he can be dropped before. So does Joe Smith Jr. have the capability to do that? Yes. But overall, I just think Beterbiev, like I said, he's in my pound for pound top 10. I think the guy is quality. He's not just a big banger who can punch. He's relentless. He's got skill. And he's just a monster. You know what I mean? So I'm picking him to beat Joe Smith Jr. this weekend. Like I said, it's going to be hard to beat Beterbiev, even at this stage, because he is 36, 37 years old now. But could Joe Smith Jr. be that younger guy that wraps him up and could you see that happening? Could that be a scenario? Your thoughts on the fight, Larry?
First thing to say is I'm really looking forward to this fight, man. It's going to be, you know what I mean? In a way, it's kind of appropriate that this fight is the last in the line of a lot of big fights recently.
Yeah, and it is.
I'm really looking forward to this fight, man. I mean, 2 tremendous competitors. Enough respect to Smith for taking this fight, man, because a lot of people do not want to share the ring with Beterbiev. for obvious reasons. I mean, he's probably the most destructive. Him and Inoue are probably the most destructive guys in boxing at the moment, with the power and precision that they've got. And it's going to be a real hard fight. But he does have a chance, because one thing about Joe Smith Jr. is that he's very fit, he's very strong, comes to fight, throws a lot of punches. Although he does need to be a little bit circumspect when he fights Beterbiev. You don't want to go in all guns blazing and leave yourself open. But he does have a high work rate, a high fitness level. He will come to win. He can punch himself, as we've seen before. I mean, we all saw how he took out Bernard Hopkins and retired him, knocked him through the ring. You know what I mean? And
you liked that, didn't you? You liked it when he did that.
Yeah, because Bernard Hopkins needs to be relieved of his ego, man. And that's the way you do it. Just, you know what I mean? Just knock him out of the sport. It was time for Bernard Hopkins to retire, man. And Joe Smith did us all a favor, I have to say, because if he hadn't have done that, Bernard Hopkins would still be fighting now. But anyway, to go back to this fight. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, man. And whilst I do have Beterbiev as the favorite, you have to make him favorite, really. You have to. He's on my pound for pound listings as well. But I wouldn't be totally shocked. And I'll tell you why. Because number one, Beterbiev has been flawed a few times now. And number two, as good as he is, he's hitting nearly 40 now, isn't he? He's getting 30, on.
37, yeah.
Yeah. And he doesn't fight that often, which is a good and a bad thing. Good meaning that he's not in any wars. He's quite fresh, but not so good in terms of, at the end of the day, man, he is an aging athlete. And we all know how that works sometimes with aging athletes. They might get in the ring one day and find that, wow, he's just not there no more. You know what I mean? Because he's not, like I said, he's not active. So, but we'll see, man. I think while it lasts, it's going to be a hell of a fight. It could be one of those that's over before the halfway mark. But I do.
Do you think it goes a distance or
I don't know. No, I'll be very surprised if that fight goes a distance. Like I said, I'm leaning towards Beterbiev, or I strongly fancy Beterbiev, but I wouldn't rule out a Joe Smith win. And I think if he was to win, it'd probably be like a late stoppage, or it could be one of them where he chins. He could be losing, you know what I mean? It could be one of them where he's getting beaten up and then he just lands a big right hand and a left hook and boom, Beterbiev goes down and that's it. So, but no, I'll be extremely surprised if this goes to points. And if he did go to points, it'd probably be one of those where there's about 5 knockdowns in the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Beterbiev, by the way, 37 years old. Ash is saying here he's getting old. He's notoriously struggles with the weight. But Beterbiev, he's getting old, but he still looks like a monster. Look what he did look at that cut that he had to overcome against Marcus Brown. Do you know what I mean? Like, overcame that, and he just like, for fear of a better term, beat the shit out of Marcus Brown, man. Do you know what I mean? Marcus Brown, I'm not saying he's elite, but he's very athletic, has got speed as well as power. Beterbiev disposing of everyone. Joe Smith Jr., he's raw, he's rugged. I think that's what he's going to have to. He's going to have to try and rough up Beterbiev, man. Like, really get in there and just rough him up. Maybe try and close the distance a bit. But Beterbiev has got, he can step back. He's got a good inside game as well. It's just going to be difficult for me to pick against him. But, an upset is not completely out the question. I'd say that.
Yeah, I think if you're Joe Smith, your tactics have got to be, he's got to set a fast pace, but with it, he's got to be defensively responsible, because the one thing you don't want to do is run onto shots too early. So he's got to box the first couple of rounds if he can do that. Behind the jab, maintain a high work rate. But the thing is, Beterbiev can box as well. Got to remember, man, he was an Olympic, silver medalist or something like that.
Yeah.
Long amateur career, distinguished amateur career, fought at the very highest level. So he knows his way around the ring. It's not like he's just going to be swinging and hoping, you know what I mean?
No, that's not how he fights. That's not how he fights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but Joe Smith, like we said, he's younger. I wouldn't say stronger, because there's not going to be many people stronger than Beterbiev. But he's younger, he's a bit fresher. And he does have a high work rate. He throws a lot of punches. He's mobile. He's very willing. He has a lot going for him. It's just that Beterbiev, man, he's an elite athlete, an elite boxer. And I just think that he'll just prove too good. I mean, there's a reason why Bivol, man, doesn't seem to want to have no smoke with Beterbiev. There's a reason in it. And I've always criticized Bivol for that. I want to see that same energy that he goes after Canelo. I want to see him do that to Beterbiev, but he just don't. He just don't seem to want it with him, man. He don't.
Big up K22 here, because I'm totally with you on this, man. On your last sentence, anyway, I think he has the potential to do that to Joe Smith Jr. But anyway, he says here, Beterbiev will rip Smith to shreds and stop him in 7 rounds. I have no idea why he always gets slept on when everyone is doing their pound for pound list. I got no idea either. I've always said it. Beterbiev should be up there, man.
Yeah, he's on mine. He's on mine for my pound for pound. I think the problem with Beterbiev is that he fights out of Canada. He's a devout Muslim. He doesn't court any of the publicity. He's a quiet guy. I saw a behind the scenes documentary on him. He's very involved in his faith. He's a family man. He doesn't court publicity or anything like that. And like I said, he's kind of tucked away in Canada there, you know what I mean? Mm. So only the real sort of boxing aficionados know that much about him. Yeah. But he's talented, man. You know what I mean? There's a reason why he's unbeaten, and there's a reason why he's smashing everyone up. So, yeah.
Big up WM in the building. I see you, bro. Good to have you here, my man. Asher said here, Bivol will not be risking his Canelo payday. That undisputed fight is not happening anytime soon. WM said here, don't sleep on Bivol, though. You know, you slept on him before a little bit. You know what I mean? So maybe we shouldn't completely sleep on him.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering why Bivol has not been active in calling Beterbiev out. Even after he just defended his title against Canelo, you would have thought that he would have said, look, man, I want to unify the belts. Mm. But he's never mentioned Beterbiev as far as I'm aware.
Well, let's see what happens, because Yard is he's supposedly in the mix. I saw a comment earlier about that, you know, to fight the winner of this fight. Let me go back to the guy. I actually laughed at it a little bit here. Jerry says here, Frank Warren is adamant that Yard will fight the winner. What do you guys think? And then Ash said, Frank Warren also said that Joe Joyce and Joseph Parker was done. We all know that didn't happen. So will that happen with Yard fighting the winner of these two?
I think with Anthony Yard, right, he's kind of boxed himself in a little bit, innit? Because he's made it clear that he's not pursuing any of those domestic fights. Mm-hmm. Him and Tunde, his trainer, have said on many occasions they're pursuing their own route, and that doesn't involve domestic fights. I mean, even the other day, I heard Tunde dismissing a fight with Buatsi, saying that they're not interested in that route. Now, that's their decision. So if that is the case, and let's face it, he's fought for a world title before, and, you know, he got a lot of credit with that performance. He came very close to beating Kovalev. So then he had the fights with Lyndon Arthur. The first one, he was a little bit lackluster, lost a disputed points decision. But the second time around, he was very impressive. Got Lyndon out of there with a body shot, and Lyndon's a very good boxer, durable guy. No one's ever done that to Lyndon before, amateur or pro. So that was very impressive. So the confidence is back up there with Yard, isn't it? So he's going to be looking at these two guys thinking, I want these two to bash each other up and I'll take the winner. And as we said, Beterbiev is getting on. So if he does, imagine if Beterbiev does win, but has to go through the mill, has to get off the floor, beaten and blooded, and come back win. And you know what I mean? If you're Yard, you look at that, you're thinking, yeah, man, this is probably a good time for me to fight Beterbiev.
Well, Ash don't seem to think he's ready for Beterbiev. K22 has said here, do you guys think Beterbiev would have been able to stop Canelo if them two fought instead of Bivol?
Yes, I think he's definitely capable of getting a stoppage. But then I also have to say that Canelo's got one of the best chins in boxing. But I have to admit, man, if they were to fight, I mean, there was a reason why Canelo never, ever mentioned Beterbiev's name. Well, actually, he did mention Beterbiev's name, but you could see he was never serious about fighting Beterbiev.
Yeah.
He targeted Bivol, as I've said on your show many times before. It was a cherry pick gone wrong. It went badly wrong, but it was still a cherry that went wrong for it.
Last one here, AJ confirmed, actually. It was confirmed on AJ's social media today that he's signed a deal with Dazn. So that ends his relationship with Sky Sports. Your quick thoughts on that? Because like I said, it was only a couple of weeks ago where I was just like, look, man, what is the situation with Dazn right now? Do you know what I mean? But this is a big coup for Dazn. However, if AJ was to lose against Usyk pretty convincingly, then, you know, how much of a coup is it? Do you know what I mean? Like, he's tied down to a bit of a long-term deal, couple of fights per year. AJ has a bit of a not an ownership stake, but he's has a bit more of a role within this contract here with Dazn. So yeah, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it makes sense. Listen, what we were saying before when we spoke about Dazn and Sky and all that before, I made the point that for up and cut, say for example Richard Riakporhe, let's take him as an example. He's doing good things at the moment. He's fighting regularly. He's knocking guys out. He's been on Sky. People are starting to get to know him. Even I was listening to TalkSport Radio today, and he was on there. You know what I mean? So people are getting to know him. Next to terrestrial TV, Sky is the most popular one. A lot of people have Sky subscriptions and get to watch fights on Sky. So Riakporhe's name's getting out there. Yeah. Now, had he have been on DAZN, for example, he would still be relatively unknown, wouldn't he? He'd only be known to the real boxing nerds and the boxing heads and aficionados that really follow the sport. That is the difference. But if you're AJ, you're already known. Everybody knows him already. I mean, it was only a few months ago that the guy's face was all up in billboards in Westfields and stuff like that. Everybody knows who AJ is. He's one of the most recognizable boxers on the planet. And so he doesn't really have to worry about, you know what I mean, the publicity that he'll get from a channel like Sky. He can go his own way because he's already there in terms of his marketability and stuff like that. So therefore, it then becomes a business decision for him. And obviously the DAZN was a better business decision for him. So you can't blame him, really.
Not at all.
You can't blame him at all. I think he's done the right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Fab, let's see how it goes, man. Still haven't had the rematch confirmed, but it's all but done. Looking like it's going to be Saudi Arabia in August. So we'll see how that goes, man. Last one before we go, Laurie. I wanted to speak about, you know, there was the Hall of Fame inductees over the weekend. I saw Floyd Mayweather's passionate speech after, during that, man. Come on, man. You got to give him, you know what I mean? He's had a great career. And, you know, he felt a bit emotional on that podium. But your thoughts on the class of 2020?
No, listen, no. Let me just make this clear. Floyd Mayweather, as a fighter, has to be. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the best protagonists to ever have donned a pair of boxing gloves. You know what I mean? He's a genius in the ring. I've always said that. So I want to make that clear. I'm not. It's just Floyd's character. I'm not what do you make of the character outside the ring. I didn't see the speech, but I've heard a few people describe it as a bit self-aggrandized.
No, I thought he was just being. No, I mean, come on, man. Like, look at the sacrifice he's had to. Like, let
me finish. So there was two speeches he gave. The first one where he broke down in tears and that, but then there was another speech where he was apparently talking about he's the best ever and he's made more money than everyone else and all that. And I just thought to myself, I'm not going to bother watching that one. You know what I mean? Because I've heard that story so many times. I don't really want to be hearing that again. So that's what I was referring to. But in terms of him being in the Hall of Fame, absolutely, because he's the best of our generation without any shadow of a doubt. And he's also one of the best to have ever have done it. It's just that I don't want to listen to Floyd Mayweather tell me yet again how rich he is, TBE, I make smart business decisions. I've heard
that one. I haven't heard that one. That was I heard about the one where he was on the podium.
Yeah, well, that was the one I'm talking about. Is the second one he gave.
Yeah, but that was probably just to some journalist. This weren't like the actual.
No, I think it was another speech he gave because there was two pictures or so. One of him in some white jacket, and then there was another of him in a black suit. So I think it was the second one that people were referring. Like I said, I didn't watch it, but I just heard people saying that he was on another rant about how rich he is, TBE, I made more money than everyone else, I made smart business moves, me and Al Heyman own this and that. I just thought I can't be bothered with that because I've heard it too many times.
All right, fair enough. I wanted to not just speak about Floyd, I wanted to get your thoughts on these guys here, just your memories of some of these guys and, you know, just, you know, they've all made the Hall of Fame. Like I said, it's been the last 3 years because the pandemic took place from 2020. So they weren't able to induct the previous 2 years, but so it's got the last 3 years up in here. But just your thoughts on some of these guys, man. A lot of big names that have been inducted, obviously. Yeah, just share your thoughts on some of these names.
Yeah, man. There's some great, the boxers there. Some great names there, man. Bernard Hopkins, Marquez, Mosley, Mayweather, and Wolf, Klitschko. You know what I mean? Layla Ali, Andre Ward's one of my favorites. James Toney's one of my favorites. Roy Jones, one of my. Miguel Cotto, one of my. All of those guys there, man. I'm big fans of all of them. You know what I mean? So they're there on merit, and yeah, man. Fair play to them. You know what I mean? Like I said, I just wasn't into listening to Floyd Mayweather tell me yet again how rich he is and how many yachts he's got. And you know what I mean? I'm past all that now. Heard it a million times. So that's what I was saying.
Oh, listen, we're going to wrap it up here anyway, man, because really, yeah, I had to cut this one to an hour today. But yeah, we'll be back later on during the week. Thursday should be around on that day. We'll talk a bit more in depth about some of the fights coming up and any other news that is going on in the game. But yeah, shout out to yourself, Laurie. Shout out to everyone in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button on the way out. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we'll catch you guys later on in the week. Laurie, I don't know if you want to close it out.
Yeah, man. Thanks again for the opportunity for coming on here and to indulge in one of my passions, which is boxing. It's a great time to be a boxing fan at the moment, man. I mean, it's funny. The other day I was chatting to a couple of people in the office who were UFC fans, and I was able to lord it over them. And I was saying over the past number of weeks, the amount of big fights in boxing, you know what I mean, has far outdone anything on the UFC scene. And even they had to admit that that was true. So yeah, man, it's great to see. We're also being told that the Errol Spence versus Bud Crawford fight is due to be announced soon. I think they're looking at first week in October, if my information is correct.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's probably one of, or even the biggest fight in boxing at the moment, isn't it? I would say. Yep. So yeah, man, it's a great time for boxing. A lot of unification fights, as is the fight this weekend, a unification fight. It's great to see, man. Great to see. So long may it continue. And like I said, I'm looking forward to this fight of the weekend.
For sure. Well, listen, guys, we're going to end it here, man. Shout out to everyone, and we'll catch you all later on in the week. Peace out.